Alrighty. There we go. So what you're seeing here is Unified Planet, community solutions for planetary challenges. And basically the hypothesis was that, okay, there are so many amazing people that that are already working within their communities on solutions to the challenges that are most high priority at the moment, whether that's mental health, whether that's food security, whether that's education, whether that's future of work, etc. And what is a way basically to create like a community accelerator, basically? Like imagine if YC's accelerator model was funding communities instead of hungry startups. And so we started this all with actually a virtual festival to coincide with Earth Day. So that was on the 22nd of April 22. Major event around the world. So much was kicking off. We decided to focus on the tracks of wellness, impact speakers, and artists. And it was amazing. It was thrown together in a couple of days, and it was jam-packed, a whole day's worth of juicy festival-like content, I think. So learnings from that was, hey, people are definitely willing at a moment's notice to be part of, I guess, a planetary like movement whereby we're activating online together, and that can also be seen. For example, this weekend we've got remote burn happening that my housemate's actually working on, which is really rad. It's like combining all of the smaller Burning Man communities and offering a completely open to all free event, and highly democratizing what can otherwise be like seriously kind of restrictive or elitist in the context of Burning Man, right? So that was first and foremost wanting to make it super accessible, super available, super open source. Like if you wanted to host something cool, jump on in and like play a part in this. So having had that success, we were like, okay, cool, let's actually launch a game. How to gamify in a kind of accelerator model people from around the world to come in and zone in on a planetary issue and approach it with this community first lens. So first topic that we hit on was actually sound. And it might sound a bit, I don't know, could sound a bit woo-woo, could sound a bit vague. But when you're really looking at what's happening right now in the world, and yes, we've got COVID pandemic, but really the next biggest pandemic is mental health. And the correlations with sound, the most ancient of ancient tools that we have as Homo sapiens, like there's a lot to be explored. So we decided, okay, how to, firstly, like, why make it into a game? And the point of making it into a game is this hypothesis that to really like unleash the creative power and to motivate people in a way to contribute their unique knowledge and their time and energy. There could be ways to shift the incentive mechanism, basically, of how you partake in whatever we deem to be work or problem solving. And we're really still in the nascent phase of what that actually looks like. But our hunch is that there is a lot to be explored in how we operate as humans with day-to-day solving challenges, and really having like a more game mentality to everything that we're doing. And so it's not, and to be clear, it's not necessarily like, hey, let's all partner with like Niantic Labs or whatever other game development studio and create like actual video games, but gamifying how we interact and relate in society. So we pulled together for this game 22 players and very diverse backgrounds, from tried to kind of tick the boxes of practitioners to academics to scientists to more entrepreneurs, but all within this bubble of the sound space, and then seeing how they could apply their knowledge and ideas in the most kind of playful, collaborative way possible, with the overriding like thesis that new knowledge can be created when we basically pull together collective intelligence that architects people that haven't necessarily been mashed up before. So with these 22, the chosen ones, we had just 4 days with them to really like meld, and then diverge into 8 breakout groups that came up with 8 fungible solutions within a constrained period of time, and also within a period of time which we ensured had a yin-yang component too. Because I don't know about you guys, I don't know if you've gone through an accelerator program before, for example, YC, 500 Startups, Techstars, like EF, there's so damn many out there, and I've myself gone through 500, and what I definitely noticed going through, and this circles back to the mental health angle, is you get so freaking burnt out. It's pretty unbelievable what you do accomplish, like output wise, but there is a severe lack of focusing on your own like self mastery as a human and your own like inner work as well as outer work, right? Because it's cool, I could crunch like hours around the clock and like launch a new product development piece every day, but if you don't actually have yourself and then those around you and your team gelling and flowing, then there's going to be issues. And of course, as we know, like the stats of why startups fail is like 70 to 80% because of either like burnout or lack of cohesion between teammates. So that is to say, we did have a serious focus each day on the yin as well as the yang, and the yin encompassed like starting off with actually members of the chosen 22 sharing their own I guess classes in a way, like mini sessions, which was an amazing way to kick off and to kind of blend the individuals together. And then kind of delineating, okay, what are the core 8 topics that we're seeing bubble up that we can then have you break out and work on. So then I want to show this scene. Okay, so here what you're seeing after the 4, and it was just 4 juicy 1.5 hour sessions. It wasn't even like full days. I wonder what would have happened if we'd had that. And also one key thing to mention is before this started, we've been hosting, as another experimentation, these things called dinner portals. So we host virtual dinners, invite curated guests to the table. Yes, time zones have been really tricky. So it's mainly been savvy to US, North American time zone, but we've also had people from Australasia, Aussie, New Zealand, Europe tune in as well. Thank you, those who got up at like 3 a.m. in the morning. But that's been a phenomenal way to actually garner interest and like constant feedback looping, and seeing how scalable this is right now, like being able to, in a way that just wasn't being conceived before lockdowns and COVID and quarantine, and people are on the whole so much more available. So you can really host a dinner party with a fascinating group with our thesis was, hey, let's not share too much deets before they actually come to the table, and just let design serendipity happen in discussions. And it has been incredible. It's been so fascinating, and the kind of ideas that are popping around the table as it gets going is really cool. Now, I do know other people are trying these virtual dinners. Some are even charging like $20 a seat. We're not. The whole model is, you've got to be invited. It's like more of a aspirational thing, like handpicking, shoulder tapping, versus like, yo, sign up for a ticket and we're charging $50. So still playing around with that, but the idea is that it's a really good filtering and kind of funnel for then the players that get chosen to be part of the game. So as you can, hopefully you guys can see on the screen these upgrades. And so each breakout group came up with an upgrade. We got 8. One was, I'm just going to quickly go through them. The first, having sound portals, it was so brilliant because someone had already been working on the idea of having sound transformation pods, and these could be deployed around the world, like basically like airdropped in to urban environments, whether that's like boom out there on the park or like in your inner city square, etc., and to really harness them for the community and have quite transformational experiences. And this could be in partnership with city councils or local governments who would help fund these for basically for the value of a community. So that's really like putting sound into the commons, and whether that's airports, malls, offices, like really just distributing it widely. And the architecture and design plans had already been done. That was a beautiful synchronicity and just shows like what bubbled up out of like smashing together these people that hadn't been smashed together before. Upload 2 was actually establishing a sound institute. So what's really lacking is any industry coherence or like standardization, so to speak. So now you've got, let's take yoga, for example. There is an international yoga alliance, and that helps keep some, I guess, common language, common kind of, like when you pass your yoga exams, like there's some industry bars. Now that's completely not even existent in the sound scene. So that was one idea, coming up with that industry alliance. Another one was, this is really cool, a sound genome. So mapping health through sound and sound frequency healing, and really tuning into what specifically, and working with, obviously, with medical industry, doctors, hospitals, health boards, and tapping into which frequencies are going to be most impactful for certain conditions. And there is already a lot of work being done in this space, and we're discovering more and more juiciness on this every day. And so that really came to the fore, particularly because of what the world is going through right now. And we did want to pull it back to, hey, COVID is happening. There are like thousands of people dying every day. So what is the vibration, I guess, of COVID, and what frequencies could we be putting out there to the patients that could drive faster recovery or improve condition improving. Another one was sound schools. So really, like, what is Gen Z? Who is Gen Z? How important is it to tune in to the next generation and have a sound bowls for all program? Now there's some awesome stuff happening, as we discovered, with these sound practitioners doing it independently, going into schools and then seen huge benefits. Learning difficulties, ADD, I think autism particularly has phenomenal results with sound healing, and statistics on children with learning difficulties and particularly in the Generation Z demographic are going just absolutely sky high. So that was another really cool angle to focus on. Then we had resonance centers, so basically think like community centers, but with a focus on being a sound studio that is available as a community space for all people. And then we had sound self-playing bowls, so really merging like emerging tech and sound and how to scale it in a way that is not happening just with people right now. So take away the facilitator factor, and what do you get? You get a bowl literally with a robotic arm. So it was fascinating chat happening there. Then we had sound psychology, really looking into psychological integration, and having some more coherent framework for how to tackle trauma and all of these other pressing issues with sound, breath, and toning, and having more therapists in the discussion there. So those were the 7 uploads. And off the back of that, it was like, okay, well, cool. Here are now 8 fundable solutions. What do we do next? And this is where the ideation and like rethinking of basically what is needed to enable new funding models. And one thing that absolutely springs to mind is what is happening in the blockchain space with DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. And you get examples, for example, of Metacartel, a DAO that was established last year. And Metacartel Ventures, you have to pledge a certain amount to get into the DAO. And it's, I think, up to like 200 people now. But the interesting piece around this, and then how this can translate into community groups, is, and also not only community groups, but actually like nations. For example, yesterday I was on a call with someone in New Zealand, my home country, whereby there could be kind of an allowance for a national DAO. So that's a fascinating concept to think about, because if you have an actual country backing community solutions through a decentralized autonomous organization that adheres to new types of governance structures, that can really redefine how communities have the right funding tools, and to not necessarily just go back to the traditional venture model where we have seen the short-sightedness and kind of non-inclusion of community solutions in that respect. So part of this Unified Planet project, mission, experiment, whatever you want to call it, that we're on right now, is trying to figure out how might we fund community solutions in different ways that lead to more sustainable outcomes, more equitable outcomes, and outcomes that will empower actually those at the front lines who can see what is needed to really shift the needle, and tap into this idea of the commons, basically. So I'm aware now that it's actually 10 to 12. I'd love to ask you guys if there's any questions coming up. I should mention the next topic, key pillar that we wanted to focus on for the next UPgame cycle is food, resilient food systems. And for that, I mean, it's number one priority, aside from health, really, and how we survive. Is food right now, and we know what is to come with changes to the supply chain, with farmers not getting access, with farm workers not being able to even feed themselves. Like there's so many critical issues in that food piece that like 8 fundable solutions. Great. We could probably come up with 88 right now. But it's also then in the funding piece, how do we get those implemented? How do we activate those solutions? So yeah, would love to hear any thoughts or ideas or feedback. We are also in constant iteration trying to get feedback as well. Like it's really tough being in COVID where you're, you know, held up in your homes. Sure, we can have calls to get kind of do user design research, but you're still very confined to your bubble in terms of really getting good pulse checks and feedback loops from the wider community. So all of these shares are so valuable, and I really am grateful for this and for Michael for enabling us to have this container today for the Unit Ventures conference.